when Todd first spoke to me about this, he goes, I don't know if I'm going to make it through without tearing up. And I said, I don't know if I'm going to make it through without tearing up just listening. Beautifully done, and thank you, Rob and Tim and Jeannie. Let's give them all a round of applause for a beautiful, transcendent piece for all of us. We come to a time in our lives of challenges and opportunities. And although this sermon recognizes the challenges and might sound a little negative at first, it also recognizes the opportunities, because that's our job, is to not wallow in the challenges, but to excel with the opportunities. As Tim and Jeannie's songs today, particularly the one with John F. Kennedy, brought to mind and imagine, is where are we going? We are mourning for things because we are losing certain things, certain freedoms. And there is time for mourning. Listen to these words from John F. Kennedy at his inaugural address. Quote, "We dare not forget today that we are the heirs of the first revolution. Let the word go forth from this time and place to friend and foe alike, that the torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans born in this century, tempered by wars, disciplined by a hard and bitter peace, proud of our ancient heritage, and unwilling to witness or permit the slow undoing of those human rights to which this nation has always been committed, and to which we are committed today at home and around the world." Does that sound like it could have been written this week? He goes on to say, "Let every nation know, whether it wishes us well or ill, that we shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any need, oppose any foe, in order to assure the survival and success of liberty." And we pledge much more. To those old allies whose cultural and spiritual origins we share, we pledge the loyalty of faithful friends. United, there is little we cannot do in a host of cooperative ventures. Divided, there is little we can do, for we dare not meet a powerful challenge at odds and split asunder. Could that have been written today? Let both sides unite to heed in all corners of the earth the command of Isaiah, to undo the heavy burdens and let the oppressed go free. In your hands, my fellow citizens, more than in mine, will rest the final success or failure of our course. Since this country was founded, each generation of Americans has been summoned to give testimony to its national loyalty. The graves of young Americans who answered the call to service surround the globe. And now the trumpet summons us again, not as a call to bear arms, the arms we need, not as a call to battle, though embattled we are, but a call to bear the burden of a long twilight struggle, year in and year out, quote, rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, a struggle against the common enemies of man, tyranny, poverty, disease, and war itself. Will you join in that historic effort? And he goes on to say that the energy, the faith, the devotion which we bring to this endeavor will light our country and all who serve it. The glow from that fire can truly light the world. And he ends with that famous line, and so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. My fellow citizens of the world, ask not what America can do for you, but what together we can do for the freedom of mankind. I thought of those words because I believe they're as important today as they were when they were said. And that's because freedoms that our ancestors, and indeed we in this room, fought for are being eroded. And this is not idle chatter, it's a reality. People today who are legal residents, refugees from war-torn countries, are now having their status changed to being illegal residents in June. While I have deep respect for the Quakers, the Amish, and the Mennonites, I don't personally share a pacifist spirituality to the degree they do. Anybody here from New Jersey? You know, South Jersey was a big Amish Mennonite community. North Jersey was the old Episcopals, Calvinists, right? And half of the state was very pro-military, and half of the state was pro-pacifist. And it's an interesting place to be, that even today, there's a dichotomy in the state in terms of how you respond to war. And of course, Mennonites, Amish, Quakers all served in all of our wars. They just served in a role that was distinct. It wasn't a lack of patriotism. It was a fact of their personal choice in terms of whether they could bear an arm. As one who is a son of a World War II veteran, I appreciate how close our world came to being taken over by Nazi Germany, Japan, and their allies. As a person that was living and had many people surrounded by the death and destruction of 9/11 in New Jersey, every little town lost somebody to that because they were over in the World Trade Centers at that time. I understand that a strong military can defend the democratic process and liberties. And I personally support that a strong military is a part, and I say only a part, of the recipe for success that the United States of America has had as a democratic nation. I think, as John F. Kennedy alluded to, our enemy at present is not from without, although there is plenty of room for that, from Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, Sudan, and more. But I do think it is within, and I don't personalize this. I stand back and detach myself and look that we are in a present culture in our country that places an ultra-conservative view on things that sometimes appears and may actually be racist, sexist, and opposing of differences, placing those over freedom because they believe that is the ideals of our nation are more important than the personal freedoms that we have. Now, this ideal is so extreme that we even have a Supreme Court justice that, based on his judicial reasoning, would outlaw many national laws in favor of states' rights, which could mean that his own biracial marriage would be outlawed in certain states. Now, you say that's ridiculous. But after 50 years of sound constitutional reasoning, which did not change, based on the 14th Amendment, the national right of women to choose whether or not to keep their pregnancy or have the right to an abortion was taken away and given to the states. And we know that some of these states have more than 3 centuries in history of their culture of prejudice and sexism and racism as part of their cultural DNA. Florida is one of them. This week, 6,000 international students at Harvard from around the world were told that their legal student visas would not be approved for next year if they went to Harvard. That's because Harvard University will not give the Trump administration 5 years of reports and videotapes on student protests. Now, no one except an authoritarian government can trample on First Amendment rights to ask for such things. It goes against the liberties we've all fought for. But this is how a totalitarian government spins lies. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said, this should be a, quote, this should be a warning to every other university to get your act together. Get your act together because we're coming to make sure you are facilitating an environment where students can learn, where they're safe, where they're not discriminated against based on their race or religion. Now, no university is perfect. That's not what they were created to be, but they were created for freedom of expression. They were not created for people to feel oppressed, discriminated against, or even in fear, and that did happen during the protests regarding Gaza. But the First Amendment should not be trampled upon by our government. This warning was not only heard by universities, but continues to be heard by corporations across the nation who continue to opt out of diversity, equity, and inclusion policies that, again, did not give underserved people opportunities they didn't deserve, but opened doors that had been closed to them. These are the policies that have made these companies great. But again, a tactic of lies after lies works, and if you listen to lies long enough, you begin to believe them. In a recent article in the USA Today, Fatima Gaves, president of the National Women's Law Center, said, quote, the pace of unraveling civil rights protections have been unlike anything I've seen in my lifetime. It's a reminder that we all have to fight again and again for those critical protections. Mark Updegrove, a presidential historian and the CEO of the Lyndon Baines Johnson Foundation, said, quote, if you ultimately look at what Trump is doing, it is aimed at taking down the laws of the Great Society, which are effectively, in my view, the foundation of modern America, the path to a plural democracy for the first time in our history. These include the Voting Rights Act, anti-segregation law, women's rights laws, laws against discrimination in the workplace, schools, housing, etc., Social Security, Medicare, are all products of those last years. So what is happening in our current budget legislation? Medicaid for millions of Americans is on the line to be cut. What will happen? Well, lives will be lost for sure. Hospitals will be closed, particularly in rural areas. Perhaps the Calvinistic Protestant theology of the elect gives some people comfort, knowing that this is all in God's plan. But that does not give me comfort. It is not in God's plan. It is a steal by powerful to take advantage of legitimate conservatives by telling them that people are stealing from us through Medicaid, through Medicare, through other things. Now, Medicaid theft is real. For example, our current Senator Scott ran a company that stole from Medicaid. So this is not a conspiracy theory. It happens. But who pays for this? We pay for it. All the common taxpayers, not the rich, whose taxes are going to be reduced again, but those folks going to the emergency rooms often too late, since ERs don't offer prevention services, the rural hospitals that will close down, and the very people that really believe that we should be fiscally conservative may be hurt. So to me, it's not personal. We all want to make this country better. But we do need to realize that there are some people that believe that the country is only made better with less freedom. And there are examples of that throughout the world. And they look to those examples, whether it's Hungary right now, whether it's other nations, that take a more conservative bent and decide that freedoms get in the way of the good of their country. All right, so enough about the doom and gloom. The world has a long history of injustice. This is not new. It's been as long as humankind. The cave drawing, right? That poor animal being killed by the caveman, right? Was there justice in that? Who knows? But let's just say that we see complacency makes us soft on fighting for justice. We thought, oh yeah, we got women's rights. Oh yeah, we got rights for our LGBTQ plus community. We're okay. And the fact of the matter is, our war is not with guns and not necessarily against outside enemies. But we have other weapons that we need to use. And Unitarian Universalists have a specific principle. One of our most important principles is the free and democratic process, responsible democratic process in our own organization and in the world. We have spiritual, economic, ethical, and political tools that give us a great opportunity to invigorate our spirituality founded on this democratic process and in justice. And we need to do this in love, but I would say tough love. Merely saying, oh, we love everything, I don't know how far that gets us. Let's embrace this opportunity. So our weapons, first and foremost, are showing up, whether it's at a protest with a sign or at Publix with a smile. Our weapon is saying hello to someone who's different from us. Our weapon is writing and calling and emailing legislators. And if you think it doesn't matter, ask the politicians. When they get hundreds or thousands of calls, they may not change their mind, but they do listen. Our weapon is to align with fellow seekers of democracy, not because we agree on everything, but because we agree on freedom and personal liberties. We are a part of iCare. iCare is a group of congregations that fights for community justice. But one of the pastors came up to me and he said, listen, within iCare, there's a smaller group of liberal progressive churches, and we need to get together because we have other things in common. I thought that was quite a prophetic gesture on this person's part, and true. Florence Nightingale, who had a strong connection with the Unitarian faith and worked tirelessly to heal troops in the Crimean War, had some important thoughts about war and service. Now, thousands of people survived because she dedicated her life to telling doctors and nurses how to make better conditions, like washing your hands, giving nutrition food, keeping the wards clean. But after the war, she called out political leaders for their discrimination against workers and women. Her work changed modern medicine forever. It started public hospitals. It started cleanliness. She used statistics. Now, do we think there's a spirituality in statistics? Of course there is. She proved things to people, and that's why they listened to her. Not because she was a woman, I can tell you that much. She suffered on that regard. It was in spite of being a woman. Freedom to me means to me, first and foremost, self-discipline, respect for myself and others, and being responsible. It's not carte blanche, do whatever I want. Nor is it do anything, even if it tramples on others. I don't know if we can all be Florence Nightingales, but I see many of her values in you all here as I look out in front of me. Here at the Unitarian Church of Jacksonville in Nassau County, we use our principle of this democratic process. I, as the minister, have freedom of the pulpit, but I'm not free to do whatever I want. We have a board and committees, and we all work together on a foundation of democracy. We respect differences. And as long as everybody at the end agrees with me, I'm fine. Oh, wait, that wasn't in here. No, we respect differences, And we practice self-discipline, where we are responsible and truly love one another. We manage our church, and if we manage our personal lives in a democratic and just way, we will serve as examples for others. Whether our children, our grandchildren, our nieces, nephews, our loved ones, democracy is a way of life that you have to work at. Let's let our light of democracy and justice shine. As Unitarian Universalists, we are small, but we are mighty. And I don't care if we're making a beautiful garden in the front, or we're doing our social hall downstairs, or we're meeting together to protest against rights being taken away. This is our responsible and ethical choice that we make for freedom. We believe that the messiness of liberties is more important than the cleanliness of everybody trying to be the same. We owe this to those that fought and died before us for freedom. As the reading today, which touched me and always does, when we see rights being taken away, we need to remember them. As the responsive reading said this morning, the person who dies doesn't decide whether that death was worth it. We decide. Thank you.